Most of the world's islands are well explored, their secrets learned long ago. But a few remain mysterious. Islands shown on maps for centuries suddenly appear to vanish. Dangerous top-secret facilities on islands are abandoned or destroyed. Moreover, islands all but completely cut off from the rest of the world produce flora that is unique and looks as though they could grow only on an alien world. Other islands are mysterious because of their inhabitants' origin or fate. All of these 10 strange and mysterious islands are truly amazing for these reasons, and more. Let's begin. Number 10. Isla Bermeja, the Lost Island. On maps dating as far back as the 1700s, Isla Bermeja was shown off the Yucatan Peninsula's coast, at a greater distance than any other island claimed by Mexico. The island was just what the country needed to extend its claim on offshore oil and stop the United States' encroachment on Mexico's interests in that department. There was just one problem. A 2009 National Autonomous University of Mexico study concluded the island doesn't exist. At least not where it's supposed to be. Using underwater sensing devices and aerial reconnaissance assets, the search team couldn't find the island anywhere in the area in which the maps indicated it should be. The island is supposed to lie 55 nautical miles farther than Mexico's 200 nautical mile territorial limit. By claiming it, Mexico would extend its oil claims into the middle of the Gulf. Although the lost island wasn't found, perhaps the island had sunk or submerged, he said. Mexican conspiracy theorists had their own ideas about what happened to Isla Bermeja. Maybe the US bombed it, or it could have been a victim of global warming or an earthquake. Number 9. Vozrozhdeniya Island. During the 1920s, the Soviet Union officials were seeking a location with specific attributes. It had to be isolated, it had to be surrounded by desert, and it had to be within the borders of the Soviet Empire. 2 islands fit the bill. The Soviets chose Vozrozhdeniya, situated in the Aral Sea. There, a top-secret biological weapons laboratory was constructed, where the plague, anthrax, smallpox, and also Venezuelan equine encephalitis pathogens were genetically modified to resist medical treatment. Gennady Lepioshkin, physician, microbiologist, and Soviet Army colonel, spent 18 years of his career on the island. In a year, he said as many as 300 monkeys would be caged on a range, next to the instruments that measured the concentrations of pathogens in the air. Following the monkeys' exposure to the germs, they'd be taken to labs, where their blood was tested and the progression of the disease in their bodies would be monitored. They said they would die within weeks, and we would perform the autopsies. The 1,500 people involved in the project not only worked on the island but lived there, as well as in the only town of Kantugbek, which provided a social club, a stadium, a couple of schools, and shops. Number 8. Bannerman Island. Bannerman Island in the Hudson River is a half-hour boat ride from New York City. There's no other way to get there. Visitors to the mysterious island are likely to wonder why there's a castle on it. The edifice was built by Frank Bannerman VI, who made a fortune by reselling surplus military equipment he bought at government auctions at the end of the US Civil War. He needed a place to store the huge quantities of black powder he'd purchased, along with other surplus items when his son David mentioned Pulapul Island. Bannerman bought it in 1900, built a large arsenal there the next spring, and constructed a small castle atop the island next to the arsenal as his home, and renaming the island after himself. When Bannerman died in 1918, construction ceased. The ferry boat was destroyed in a storm in 1950, and the island was abandoned. On August 8, 1969, a fire gutted the arsenal, and New York State, which had bought Bannerman Island and its buildings in 1967, declared the island off limits. It reopened in 2017, and tour guides now recount the island's mysterious history to curious visitors. Number 7. Earthquake Island. The powerful earthquake that killed 39 people and toppled homes in Pakistan in September 2013 also created an island. According to Pakistan's chief meteorologist, Mohammad Riaz, it was magnitude 7.7, while the US Geological Survey in Colorado claimed it was magnitude 7.8. The island didn't exist before the earthquake, but after the event, the Pakistan Meteorological Department's Director General, Arif Mohamud, said locals reported witnessing the creation of the tiny island, measuring 100 meters or 330 feet in length, and 9 meters or 30 feet high, near the port of Gwadar. Pakistani officials said the earthquake might have buckled land under the sea, creating the island, but further investigation would be conducted to determine the cause. Number 6. Poveglia Island. Back during the bubonic plague, nearly half of the world's population died. The Romans had a clever idea to keep the healthy people separated from the sick. The plague people were shipped off to Poveglia Island, a small secluded landmass that floats between Venice and Lido. There, people lived out the last of their wretched lives together until they died. Since the island already reeked of death, the next time an epidemic came along, barely alive bodies were dumped there and burned in mass graves. In the 1920s, a mental hospital was built to welcome the island's newest guests, or anybody that showed symptoms of any short sickness, physical or mental. Basically, if you had an itch, away you went to Poveglia, where you'd sink your feet into the soil, half dirt, half human ash, and be in the company of over 100,000 dead. At one point, an unscrupulous doctor ran the mental hospital, and since mental health was pretty unregulated back then, he conducted all kinds of brutal experiments on residents of the island, like shoving chisels into their brains to see what moved. The doctor committed suicide by jumping from the bell tower. One more soul added to the island's strange and gruesome past. Let us know if you know anything about these islands in the comments below. Number 5. Floating Eye Island. Located in the Parana Delta between the cities of Campana and Zarate in Buenos Aires province in Argentina, is an island shaped like a nearly perfect circle with a diameter of 120 meters or 390 feet. It is surrounded by a channel that also forms a nearly perfect circle, thanks to the presence of the round landmass inside it. The channel looks much like a crescent moon. Together, the island and channel resemble an eye, an appearance that suggests the island's nickname, the eye floats. It also rotates on its own axis. Having made the astonishing discovery of the mysterious island, a hydraulic and civil engineer from New York who's become involved in the project decided to make a crowd-funded documentary about the eye, instead of filming the science fiction movie. Number 4. Socotra Island. Socotra Island off the coast of Yemen looks for all the world like an alien planet. Its endangered flora is unique due to the remote location's isolation, temperature extremes, and arid conditions. A third of its plant life can be found nowhere else on Earth. Fortunately, 70% of the island has been set aside as a national park. Some of the plants look like turnips planted upside down. The branches of another, the crimson sap of which has entered into the name Dragon's Blood Tree, are devoid of leaves, except at their tips, making it look as though the branches are the tree's roots, and the tree is growing upside down. The strange tree is used for its supposed medicinal value, to produce fabric dye, to make incense, and to stain wood. The island's bottle tree, adapted to store water in a dry climate, has a thick trunk, and its few limbs, thick near the trunk, give rise to clusters of much thinner branches ending in thick clumps of green leaves. Surrounded by turquoise water, the island features huge limestone caves, homes to bats, the only mammal native to Socotra. The residents of the mysterious island are also unique. They all have a DNA haplogroup possessed by no other people on Earth, and some contend that the Garden of Eden was originally located on Socotra. In 2008, UNESCO named Socotra a World Heritage Site. Pretty amazing. Number 3. Diego Garcia. The vaguely U-shaped 44 square kilometer, 17 square miles atoll in the Indian Ocean known as Diego Garcia has thick tropical jungles and white sand beaches. It was home to 2,000 native Chagosians until the British government forcibly relocated them between 1968 and 1973, so that the US could build a naval base there in exchange for Britain's agreement to lease the island, which is of strategic importance because it's located between East Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia, allowing the US to strike locations in both Asia and the Middle East. Diego Garcia was used to stage air support operations during the 1991 Gulf War, the 2001 Afghanistan War, and the 2003 Iraq War. The remote, restricted island, some contend, is also the site of a secret US prison camp, although American authorities deny the truth of such speculations. Number 2. Partridge Island. Canada's Partridge Island, located off the coast of St. John Harbor, New Brunswick, became a quarantine station in 1830. Immigrants stayed there upon their arrival in Canada to ensure that they didn't spread shipboard diseases to Canadian citizens. Thousands of immigrants came to Canada during the 1847's Great Famine, and 2,500 Irish immigrants were quarantined on Partridge Island. The diseases against which the quarantine guarded from spreading included cholera, typhus, smallpox, yellow fever, and measles. Newly arrived immigrants were subjected to kerosene showers followed by showers in hot water. Many were sick, and Partridge Island couldn't handle the huge numbers who came to Canada during the peak of the Irish potato famine. The influx of thousands of Irish earned the island the nickname Canada's Emerald Isle. Quarantined immigrants who died of disease were buried on the island, and one occasion in a mass grave, the grass over which was rumored to be of a more intense green than the surrounding lawn because of the bones of the dead had nourished it. Closed in 1941, Partridge Island became a mysterious place visited only through photographs. Number 1. Easter Island. Hoping Easter Island would give up its answer to their question as to how islanders had once lived there, farming thousands of miles from any continent, a team of researchers from the University of California at Santa Cruz used paleogenomic research to determine the genetic history of the Rapa Nui, as Easter Island's lost people are known. It was believed the Rapa Nui interbred with South Americans well before Europeans arrived in the Easter Island in 1772. But to the surprise of the UC Santa Cruz team, the materials from museums they tested indicated no contact between the Rapa Nui and South Americans before the arrival of Europeans, which earlier studies had, making the team's findings somewhat controversial. If the results of their research prove correct, it's clear that the Rapa Nui didn't have help from South Americans in creating and moving the island's heavy moe. Unaided, the Rapa Nui carved and moved them themselves. There are many locations in the world that still hold secrets or mysteries, as many of the aforementioned do. Whether it is what is happening there now or what went on in the past, they all seem to have many stories to tell. The next time you fancy going somewhere different on holiday, why not give island hopping a go? That is, if you're allowed to go to them. Well, if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you're going to love to watch our video about the most dangerous animals in the world on our channel. Make sure to click the subscribe button for future notifications and never miss our videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Till then, stay tuned.